Hello, and welcome back to a short journey of the mind to the following question: Death and sickness. Why does God make us suffer? 2 years ago, I stood at the open grave of one of my best friends. She died after a long sickness of cancer, and that was so sad. And the reality that she was dead, the reality that we had been praying and hoping for months and even years, and she was still dead, it struck me. It was really hard to take. And sometimes those realities, they happen in our lives. We go through our lives, we are happy, we celebrate, and then things appear that make us think, that make us really fight with the realities that are also part of our lives. Throughout the last months and year, we had so many pictures and movies coming up in our mind and on our screens about Corona and the pandemic, and the reality that we all have to die really struck us right in the middle of our lives. It was just suddenly there. Our lives were stopped by the reality that a small virus can change the whole world. We had to go into home office. We are distanced from each other. Everything just changed within a few months. Where is God? Is this pandemic, is it a punishment by God? I heard people say God tries to punish us. He wants to bring us back. He disappears from our reality. Is it true that a loving God lets us alone with sickness and death? To find an appropriate answer, I want to take you in a picture that helps me a lot by thinking, how does God see the reality? I want to show you this picture with the two trees. When you open up the Bible, you see like a red line throughout the human history. The human history started with God. He created human beings. And at the beginning, at the very first pages of the Bible, you find the human beings together with God. Adam and Eve, they had a perfect community with God. As you can see there, they had love, purity, life. Everything was so harmonic. There was no death, no sickness. There was just the absence of everything evil. They were in perfect harmony with God in the Garden of Eden. When you jump and go to the end of the reality of human history, when you follow the red line in the Bible and try to take a look at what will be at the end, it will be a tree again. In the Revelations, the final book in the Bible, we find that human will be reunited with God, and there is also a tree of life. So we see there is a journey, a red line of human history, and the Bible tells us about this story. When we go back to the first tree, before Adam and Eve ate from the tree with the wrong fruit, there was perfect harmony with God. No evil and no death and no sickness. When they ate from the fruit and started to cut the pure love and purity and life with God, suddenly in their life there was sin, and suddenly also in their life there was death. Suddenly there was disaster. Even the nature is suffering, and that's the reality that we all know. I put it here on the line. The red line of human history started to have the presence of sickness, death, sin, nature, catastrophes, all that we really don't want. That's our reality. We live between two trees. Whenever you were born in this planet Earth, you live between the two trees, and there is sin and sickness. So, what is our perspective? If you want to read with me in the Bible, you see the following. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. We all know sickness. We know death. We all know the reality is not just purity, love, and harmony. We have to suffer. We have to go through difficulties in our lives. And that's what we all know. It's a life between two trees. We come from paradise, and we are destined to go and spend time in paradise again. But here on this planet, we live between the trees. And I want to show you what Easter means. I want to show you where is God in this story of human history. If you see the cross of Jesus, the story of Easter, the reality is, I want to show you what the cross looks like. The cross of Jesus is in the middle of our lives, in death and sickness and the absence of happiness sometimes. In the middle of your suffering, Jesus died on the cross, and he gives us two perspectives for our suffering. The first perspective is that whenever you're suffering from sickness or death or sin in your life, Jesus comes in and he forgives you. He gives you new life. The cross of Jesus means death has found an end and he gives new life. And wherever you are in your life right now, I want to give you the hope and the perspective of Jesus. He sees you, and he is not a God that looks from afar at our lives that is between the two trees, our life that is longing for paradise and love. He comes close. That's the story of Easter. God is a God who gave his only Son to come in the middle of our lives, in the middle of our suffering, to be here. And even more than that, the Son of God took all the suffering, all the sin. He took death upon himself so that we can be set free. What a great news. That is the news of Easter. And he gives us even a second perspective in our suffering. One day, says the Bible, there won't be any suffering. Let us read what is going to happen at the end of the human history, at the end of the red line. Let's read in Revelations. There it says, he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. This Bible verse tells us the old order of life, the living between the trees in the suffering, will find an end. And our perspective is in paradise with the second tree is perfect harmony, love, and unity with our God. And I want to show you by hanging that up so you can see it with your eyes. We are destined to live with God in love, purity, and life. This is where we are going and heading. Jesus brings a perspective between the trees and even after our death. Tamara will tell us what she experiences when she invites Jesus in her suffering. Here is her story.
When my friend got her second cancer diagnosis, my world stood still. I remember when we drove together to her first chemotherapy. And we were hours and days together in the hospital. We sat at her bed and we cried a lot. And we also talked about life after death. And I would love to say that everything is okay and everything is fine in my heart. But it's not. I miss her so much. And I would love to say that I had hope and I didn't have fear. But that it's a reality that I have some questions and I don't have answers. But I also have another reality in my life, and it's that there is a perspective in my life. There is a hope in my life, a divine hope, and a hope that stands above my circumstances.
Like Tamara says, God gives us a perspective that is further, goes beyond our circumstances. Even if your circumstances are sickness, sin, death, or the disasters happening in our lives, Jesus is a God who comes close. And I want to invite you to accept him in your life between the trees. Let us read in John 3:16. The verse is probably known to you. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. Jesus died on the cross and he was resurrected. He lives. He comes into our life between the trees. And he gives us a perspective even further than our death. Let us invite Jesus in our lives and experience that even in the suffering, Jesus is present. Our God sees you.